Hello and welcome, everyone. My name is Alison. I work for Trinity College London as the Head of Business Development for the UK and Ireland in our language unit. Thank you so much for joining us today. This is the second webinar that we're running in a kind of mini GESE series that we typically run at this time of year, kind of ahead of the busy summer period. Certainly in the UK and Ireland, we have lots of schools that are running the GESE exam with their learners. This session is focused on preparing for the topic phase, and I'm delighted to be joined by Liz Hunt, who's going to take you through the presentation today. Just a bit of housekeeping before we get going. If you do have questions that you'd like answered, either myself or Liz, at the end of the session, if you'd like to pop them in the Q&A box, if you look along your controls on Zoom, it might be under the three dots for more, or you might just see a Q&A function. If you open that and pop any questions in there, that way we're really sure that we don't miss anything in the chat as we go along. But I'm delighted to introduce you to Liz. Liz actually has been working with us for a little while now, at doing some training for us. She has a wide range of experience as a teacher and a teacher trainer, and has worked in many, many places around the world, including Greece, Thailand, South Korea, Indonesia, and in the Middle East. As a teacher trainer, an examiner, and a consultant. She has experience working for Trinity as an examiner both for the GESE and ISE. But she is also a teacher trainer for the Trinity Cert TESOL. So I'm delighted to have Liz here to present to you. This is very much focused on preparing the topic phase for the GESE exam. But Liz will give you a little bit of an introduction to Trinity as an organization and an overview just of how the exam is structured from across the different levels. But then we'll kind of hone in on how best to prepare learners for the topic phase. So I'm going to pass over to you, Liz, and I will join you at the end if you have questions. And I'll just also be there keeping an eye on the chat for you, so not to worry about that. Okay, I'll pass over to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Alison. Hello and welcome, and nice to be with you all this afternoon. Okay, so what's your experience with GESE? If you have a little practice with the chat, if you can see it along the bottom of your screen there, you could just pop in none, some, or a lot. If you would like to put, yeah, okay, lovely. We've got some there. Okay, nice. Okay. Oh, okay. We've got a mixture then. All right. Okay. Some, but yeah. Okay. 5 and 6, 9. Okay. So we'll be looking at some of those. Okay. Thank you very much for joining with us with that. So we'll have a mix. So I'll do it basically, go through it quite slowly, what we're doing. So today's session, basically, it'll be a brief introduction to Trinity for those of you who don't know, then the GESE structure overview, and then the fact that we've got a revised syllabus now. We've got some slight changes, not huge ones, so don't worry about that. And then we're going to focus on preparing for the topic phase of the exam. And then I'll be showing you some resources to support the GESE preparation, where you can get it on the Trinity website. It's got a lot to help you with. And then some marketing tools to help you again with getting it out there if you're going to be a centre. All right, okay. Trinity, it's been around a long time as an examiner. It started off in music and drama and then moved across into language, and it was established a long time ago, as you can see, and has been providing international recognized assessments in latter years and local at the beginning, at the end of the 19th century. We now are recognized in 80 countries. overseas. So it's an internationally recognized qualification and exam. So it's used for universities and higher education establishment, for work establishments, for all kinds of measures if the English language requirement is needed for people looking for work or study. They're specially designed to help learners progress. So they start at a low level and then can slowly move through the different grades and move up to as high a level as they need to. Again, which opens up opportunities for study and employment, and also hopefully gives them language that is relevant to the needs that they will have in the future. Okay. So, as we see, we've got music, drama, and arts, where we started out, grades and diplomas for those. And then we've got English language with ESOL, Skills for Life. And then we've got GESE and ISE. So that's in the English language, going through all the levels, as I said. Teaching English, the Cert TESOL, the DIP TESOL, teaching young learners. And this also, as Alison said, I've been involved in training teachers on these. Again, internationally recognized, only one of only two internationally recognized qualifications there. And then we've got tests for people in who want their visas. So again, CELTs who need a visa to stay in the UK for whatever reason. So we provide all that through our teaching English. So GESE, all right, which stands for Graded Examinations in Spoken English. So they're one-to-one, speaking and listening. And they're with a professional Trinity examiner. All the examiners go through a training, initial training, and then they are standardized every year to ensure that there is equality across all exams and across all examiners, wherever they may be examining. So we make sure that there's parity and that it's a valid test. Now it focuses, as I said, on real life interaction and communicative skills. So it tries to give language that will be useful in everyday situations that they might need. And it goes from 12 grades from the CEFR, if you know what that is. That's the Common European Framework, are the standard language levels, which go from pre-A1 up to C2. And the criteria of the way of examining our students is based on this CEFR level, which again is internationally recognized. So it goes from real beginners all the way to advanced, and supports the language that is needed and is built on language before. So each level will take some communicative aspect from before and then take it on to the next level. And these come from are recognized again by ALTE, which is the Cambridge Association for Language Testing in Europe. Okay. So now let's have a look at this. So we start on the left with the lower level at grade 1, and it's a shorter test, so 5 to 7 minutes. And it just has a little conversation. Then we move up, so we've got 1, 2, and 3 there. Then we go to 4, 5, and 6. We'll be having a look at a grade 4 today. And that is about 10 minutes, and that's divided into 2, a topic discussion, which we'll be looking at in more detail later, and then a conversation. So that's at what we call the elementary stage. Then the intermediate stage, which is grades 7, 8, and 9. Underneath that, you can see the CEFR reference. So you can see, if you ever wanted to double check, you can see what is the language expected at that level and internationally, and that the Trinity exams follow that. That's about 15 minutes and has the same as the elementary stage, but with an interactive task as well. So that's to and fro with the examiner. That's about 15 minutes. And then the higher levels, the advanced stage, which is 10, 11, and 12, and goes into grade C, level C. And then that includes a topic presentation, whereby the student prepares a little presentation and gives it to the examiner, and also a listening task. Okay, now if you look here, we can see the conversation talks about, all the way along is the same, talk about two subjects and gives ideas and opinions. These are chosen by the examiner, but they will be from a list of conversations that you will already know. So you can have had a look at the language around each of these topics as you prepare the students. The one thing we don't do is try to surprise or catch out the students in any way. Everything that is done in the exam is possible to have been prepared to a degree within the classroom. So then the topic discussion is a topic that they can choose. And as I said, that's what we're going to look at in more detail today. Then the interactive task is to ask questions about a situation you are given. And again, these situations have all been practiced before. They're all in the preparatory materials. Then they give a topic presentation on a topic of their choice, if you're doing the higher levels, the same as the topic discussion. And then the listening task is listen to a short passage and answer questions. So to make it more challenging as it goes up. All right, so the topic task, the test taker prepares any topic of their choice for discussion with the examiner. So this is the really personalized aspect. Now, of course, some topics are better than others. Some topics allow for more language to be used within them. So then we'll have a look later on in this session about how to choose a topic that is suitable for an exam, because we want, thing is, we want the students to be able to show off the language they know within the level that they are. So then we have the interactive task where the examiner reads a prompt which creates an information gap. Therefore, it's collaborative. So it's a to and fro, like a natural conversation with the examiner. And then they can have a little discussion based around that. And then the conversation task, the examiner, as I said before, selects two topics from a list to initiate conversation. And at the end, there's often a chance for the students to ask a question. So as we know in English, asking questions can be a little bit tricky. And so this shows if they are capable of asking questions. So here we got the revisions. As I said, there are a few changes. So what's the same? So the grade structure is the same. All right. It's exactly the same as before. The tasks, exam duration, and assessment structure across all grades is the same, as those of you who've done this before will have noticed from the previous slide. The subjects for the conversation areas, they haven't changed. And the language functions and lexis listed remains relevant. And the descriptors that the examiners use against the performance and certification are exactly the same as before. So there's no impact really on the way that you teach this in this sense. So nothing new in that way. Okay, now let's have a look. Go on and have a look at what's new. Now this is the part that's new. Okay, so you can have a choice between the type of GESE that the students take. So it can be GESE for school. So if it's for school pupils progressing through their year groups, then that's the one for you, GESE for school. Then there can be GESE for work. So this would be for older students, maybe a higher age teenagers who are going into a workplace, or for people who are already in a workplace. And then a generic one, a GESE for everyday communication. Okay. So now the grammatical structures listed for each grade will be recommended rather than required items. So they're recommended based on the level we are expecting at that particular stage of the student's English language development. Now, the candidates or you as the centre will tell the examiner at the beginning of the exam which focus area they would like to follow. So, for example, if you've got a class of school children, you would tell the examiner they're all doing GESE for school, for example, if they're the same. Okay, so that can be done right at the beginning of the exam session. If you've got lots of different ones, if you're a centre that is taking a variety of students or candidates for this, then you may have to do it individually at the beginning of each exam. So, but Trinity examiners are trained to deal with this, so they will know which exam is happening and what they need to do. And of course, all Trinity examiners are trained to conduct the exam in an age-appropriate way, irrespective of what the candidate's choice is. Okay, so your role here would be to choose an area or suggest an area that aligns with what your candidates need. So that's how you would help them. You might suggest them, okay, for them. If they're not sure, you might say, well, what are you going to use it for? And then you would choose for them. The functions and lexis remains the same. So it allows more flexibility, really. That's why that's been done, to allow flexibility in that sense. So the descriptors and everything is the same. So that remains the same. And that's why it's got it as recommended rather than definite. Okay, sorry, Alison, go on. So running a GESE at your institution. Okay, so we've got 3 ways again. This is new. So it can be, as we've had it before, in person, in which case this is the exam is administered at your institution and a Trinity examiner comes to conduct it face to face. That's the way it's always been done in the past up to now, with face to face. In person, that's the original. Then we can have in the center, but online. So in this case, the exam is still administered at your institution, but the computer is set up for live streamed exam over video conferencing with the Trinity examiner. Okay, so that it's the same principle, but it's just that it's a video instead of an examiner coming in. but it's at your center. And that means you'd have to have a good setup and a quiet room, which you have to have for face-to-face anyway, with a computer set up in it. Then you can have fully remote now, which is the new one. So a candidate may take exam from home over video conferencing, and the center staff will present online to verify candidate identity and facilitate the session. So basically what it means is the examiner is in their office or their home, the student or candidate is in their office or home, but the center still has to verify that this is the person taking the exam to ensure that we've got a true identity there. All right, so that's different now, so that's new. Okay, all right, I see some questions coming up. That's fine, we'll deal with them at the end. Okay, so now, as I said, we're going to focus on the topic phase. All right, so again, the topic phase is, as with all of these exams, the topic phase is based around can do, all right? The bias is always around what students can do. It's not negative marking or negative looking at the language. We're not saying, oh, they didn't do that and they didn't do this. What we're saying is, this is what they need to do. Yes, they did that. Yes, they did that. Yes, they did that. So it's to demonstrate what they can do in English, to use the communicative skills, language functions, and language items of the grade. And this gives them a chance to talk about a topic of personal interest that they feel confident about. So they choose their own topic, giving them some autonomy, making them feel that they're in control a little bit of what they want to talk about. And this is key, to talk about a subject at length. Well, the length being the time of the exam. So if it's probably about 5 minutes, 4 to 5 minutes for grades 4 to 6, for example. Maybe a little bit more for a higher grade. All right, thank you. So again, looking at the positives of this. So the rationale for this is bias for best. So what they can do, as I said, ownership of language and content. They have agency in authentic exchange, because the examiner might ask for clarification about something, or for them to expand a little bit if they haven't given much detail. Again, trying to draw out from the student what they can do, so that the examiner is there to prompt gently and to make links across the ideas. So hopefully this will increase confidence that they're talking about a subject that they know about. Hopefully they will feel more positive about it, or that's always a tall order in an exam, isn't it? But we do our best there. And in that case, if they're a bit more confident, maybe we'll get a better exam result from them. And hopefully, as it's near the beginning, it will set them at ease that they have already been able to talk about something. So hopefully they'll feel more confident to go on to the next stages of the test. Okay, thank you. So preparation. Now, this is the tricky bit for us as teachers. There's no such thing as a bad or a good topic choice as such, but if it's a genuine interest of the learner, but we must ensure that the ideas that they have around that topic are extensive enough to cover the language necessary. Okay, so what things do we need to prepare for? Okay, now choosing a topic should be interesting, obviously, for the candidate, so it's something they know about. Now, as I said before, you've already got a list of the possible conversation areas if you're doing the slightly higher levels. So try not to choose something that's exactly the same. It can be around because the topics are very general, around about, but not exactly the same. But it can be the same topic area. That it enables use of the language, grades, skills, and functions. Okay. And it should be highly personalized so that it's different from their peers. Again, it's no problem with them choosing similar topics. I remember many years ago hearing many exams about the group One Direction, who I had never heard of before I went to Italy, but had by the time I'd finished examining. Okay, go on. So, preparing. So, suitable preparations for time allowed. Not too much, not too. Listen, now this one's important. They must not prepare a script so that we don't want any reciting of speeches word for word. It won't work anyway because the topic form, the examiner will not refer to it in order. So that's why we have it like a spidergram. It's not a list of things to talk about. The topics are there, but the examiner will choose randomly what order to do. So they will anticipate examiner questions with further examples relating to the topic. So again, practicing, thinking, now I'm going to talk about that. What questions might the examiner ask about this? So they prepare a topic form for the grades 4 to 6. They have basic points for 7 to 9. And then for the very high levels, they have a handout. You must be prepared to engage the examiner. This is a topic you're interested in. You want to make the examiner interested in it too. So we want to try and draw that out of them. And it's possible that they can bring in something if they're doing a face-to-face, even online, it is possible to show an object and talk about it. Or having a visual online may be more difficult, but I think an object or something is possible. Of course, if you're face-to-face, either of those would work quite well to say why this is important to you and why it's interesting. Okay, so now we can do this by starting by doing a class brainstorm. So what you want to do is, I mean, this is a suggestion. You're all experienced teachers, I know, so you'll have your own ideas as well, how to generate ideas. But just think, what possible topics could we talk about in the test? Get a big range of topics up from all the students in the class. And then they can maybe make spidergrams from a topic. I mean, again, I've done it with group work where each table, they'll take a topic and then they'll all brainstorm their ideas and then they'll move to another table and then people can add ideas to it as they go around, or a word wall. You can do it around the wall. It all depends on your setup for teaching. But as long as you give them the maximum to share as many ideas as possible. And of course, obviously there'll be too many ideas for a 4 to 5 minute talk in an exam, but it gives them a range and then they can select which ones they feel most confident talking about. So first of all, the topics, and then think, okay, these topics, who would like to give us some ideas about this topic or that topic, whatever, and share that around. Try to generate as many ideas as you can, okay, in whatever way you can. So again, this is a spidergram. So once they've chosen their topics, they can use this mind map and think that's a spidergram. As I said, there are word walls. There are many ways you can do that, or you might want to do it if you're using apps that relate to ideas in the classroom. You can use those and share them and project them through the computer, any ways that you're used to doing it. But the key is try to get as many ideas as you can before the students finally choose their own topic. Okay. So now you want to look at the language of the student's grade. So for example, grade 4. So you've got the topic, you've got the ideas, you've got the vocabulary necessary for the topic. And then what you want to do is narrow them down to choose 4 ideas from the mind map which best use all of the language of grade 4. For example, so you look and think, okay, what would we talk about here? So if it's present continuous tense, for example, which idea there would enable the use of the present continuous tense, for example? Do they need sequences? Is it a sequence? So must we use those? What other kinds of cohesive devices are they expecting us to use? How can we link these 4 ideas? And you may find, oh, we choose those 4, but they all use the same language. So we need to, maybe we should try another idea in there and exchange it. So that's where you come in as the teacher in guiding them into getting the best possible choices for their topic as they can. So we say 4 ideas for grade 4. If you're grade 5, it's 5 ideas. If it's grade 6, it's 6 ideas, etc. All right. So yeah. Try to get the best for them, and that's our role as teachers there, doing that. Okay, let's have a look now. So this is an example of a topic form. All right. Now, depending on the rollout of the exam, if it's face-to-face, then it'll be on the piece of the topic form will be there in paper form. And can be given directly to the examiner before the exam, okay? If it's online examiner, then it can be cut and paste electronically and put into the chat for the examiner, as long as the examiner sees it. But all candidates must complete a topic form before the exam because the examiner needs to see it by the time the students come into the exam. So then you've got the title of the topic. So what is the topic? Then you've got your 4 main points to discuss about my topic. So it might be a word or 1 or 2 words. It must not be complete sentences. It must just be note ideas. So what are the main ideas about this topic? And then the candidate and the examiner discuss each topic point as they go through. And it won't be in order. So if the student puts 1, 2, 3, and 4, the examiner will ignore that and probably start at 3 or 1, go to 1, and etc. So the examiner chooses the sequence, not the candidate. That's because we need to go back to that idea. We must not learn off by heart, which of course is tempting for students, but this is not the idea for this exam. Okay, it's meant to be a conversation, a natural conversation. So here's a topic form. There's the title of the topic, main points, and that is the format for the form for grade 4. As we said, so this is my holiday in France. Okay, so this is the topic. So now we want to have a look at, now just have a look at that a moment and look at those ideas and then decide, do you think that this would be a good form and good ideas to maximize the language? So just have a look at that a moment. So we've got the hotel, the beach near the hotel, the food and drink, presumably near the hotel, and my family and friends who are with me. All right, now let's just have a look at think about the language. Okay, so have a look. So that's the communicative skills. Okay, so that's what they have to do. All right. Now, what's the language that we've got? Okay, so the language functions. Now, again, thinking back to the topic, which was my holiday in France, the beach, the hotel, the food, and my friends. Now, would we be able to cover all that language? Again, I'll give you a moment to look at that. Okay, now if you'd like to pop in the chat, do you think, if you think we would need to add some different ideas, put in add. If you think it's okay, put okay. Okay, we've got add, we've got okay. Mm-hmm. Good. Mm-hmm. Good, good. Okay, so now you're thinking that's nice. Yes. So most of you think that we would need to add something, and yes, you're thinking about the future time. Okay, talking about future plans and intentions there. Yes. Okay. So let's have a look now at what we consider would be a better choice. Okay, so here we've got now. So here we have it, future expression. Well done. Okay, so that's good. Also, actions in the past. So the activities we did on the beach. Making comparisons. The hotel was better than a villa, or our hotel was better than the one next door. So we're using comparisons. And then likes and dislikes, the food and drink liked. Yes, exactly. The problem with the original one was it was basically very descriptive. It would have just been, it was like this, it was like that, etc. So again, we needed to bring in these. So yes, future, my next holiday, as you all rightly identified. Actions in the past, what we did. So activities. And then here, so you can see you can put in some of the language in on the form. That's okay, as long as it's not in a complete sentence. It's to remind. So better than shows, oh yes, I must make a comparison. We did, oh yes, I must do past. Next holiday. So that's triggers to help them. So that's a good uh, form there. So again, try to match, get them to match what they need. And again, that's when you're preparing, that's when you help them with it. So maybe adjust. They'll probably come out with something like the first one. And then you say, okay, how could you use comparisons? How could you say something about what you're going to do next and prompt them to then tweak it. Doesn't have to be completely changed, but tweaked. Okay, all right. So that was grade 4. Now, 7 to 9, the next phase. Okay. So now we brainstorm ideas. Again, the procedure is exactly the same, using the language of the grade. Prepare some basic notes, probably bullet points, things that are recommended, not compulsory. So basic notes. But again, the notes to elicit the language of the grade. And they need to include questions for the examiner. Remember, we need, the examiner may well ask them to question. That's at all levels, from elementary upwards in the topic phase. The examiner may say, would you like to ask me a question? It's always good to get them to prepare a question. So if we go back to our, if we think about going on holiday, then it could be, where do you like to go on holiday? Or do you like staying by the beach or by the mountains? Something like that. A simple question, just to know. Okay, all right. And then we move on to the next grades. So 10 plus. And then again, this was the higher level. So you have a topic phase and they have to give a presentation at this stage. So again, they need to choose a subject they know well and enjoy talking about. But again, generate ideas, same principle. Thinking about the discursive elements. So how are you going to more discussion within this, and looking for a logical argument or opinion to develop. Remember, this is higher level. So we're looking at people trying to give thoughts to justify something that they say with reasons and examples. So they have to do a little bit more research for this one and collect information. And then they can share their sections to plan an outline. Again, the outline should only be note form, not complete sentences, but it's just as to help the memory of what they want to say. But anything they say must be justified and can be challenged by the examiner. All right, to get them to clarify usually. So this is the topic presentation. So this is the main features of any kind of presentation. So it has to have the different stages. And within that, there will be certain phrases that they will need to do. So for opening, for example, they would say, so to start my talk, I would like to, etc. And then I will give you what I am going to talk about is the overview. Forward referencing, I will talk about that later. Moving from one point to another point will be, and the next point. Or you could do sequencing, first, second, third. Highlighting points. Now this is very important. Again, certain phrases that they will need, that are set phrases in any kind of talk to show moving from one part of the talk to the next part. Linking phrases and discourse connectors. Okay, so things like, for example, in contrast. Okay, so using those kind of phrases, discourse markers, we call them. Backward referencing, as I said earlier, okay, again, repeating something. Let me put that another way, okay. And then summarizing, clearly showing, okay, now let me just summarize what I've said, just briefly, not to repeat what they've just said, but just to summarize and say conclude. And then usually at the end of this, there's a Q&A. So you say, they need to say, now, are there any questions? Right? So again, the stages of giving a presentation. And if you give them, again, those language are set, there are phrases for each of those stages that are easy to prepare and help to make a smooth presentation. Okay, all right. So here we are. This is Trinity, has a lot of resources and support for you on their website. Okay. So you can have, there's academic guidance, obviously, and then you've got we've got some new things, are tips for preparing the topic. So, that'll be expanding on what I've been discussing with you today. And examiner plans, okay, they are new as well. Then coming soon are schemes of work to help you with your lesson planning with that. So we've got some, but they'll be revised. And then your way to GESE books. So again, you can see an example there in the picture, a learner's book. So again, there will be activities and language in there for the appropriate level. As you can see, they've got grades 1 and 2 there. And then additional activities, worksheets, prompts that you can take off the website, and sample videos, which are very, very useful to look at for you, so you can see the format of the test itself and see sample tests there. Okay, thank you. So we've got marketing support here. So again, if you're a center and you want to know how to, what's the best way you can get this out there? How do we tell people that we're a registered exam center? So Trinity will help you with various logos and suggested wording for print advertising and online. An introduction video, and then social media assets, which will have the branding, branding for your institution and for Trinity. PowerPoints, if you're an agent or going around yourself to schools or places in your area. A fact sheet, banners and posters for printing. And if you are having like a conference or something, you can have banners to put up and backdrops, flags, etc. to display for advertising. So again, there's some pictures there that show you. And if you want that, you contact your local Trinity office for more access and details. Okay. Now we'll look at becoming a center. Okay, so you can. So how do I become a center? So you check registration criteria and venue requirements. So you have to be sure that your venue is suitable for this. Submit a completed application form online, and then it's processed. That takes around 2 to 4 weeks. Then your application is accepted. If they say, well, maybe you need to have something a bit different to meet our criteria, then you have time to do that, to get that ready. So you set up a relevant system, delivery of center logo, so you get the logo, and then you are provided with relevant academic operational contact for support, and the support will be there all the way through. And then you enroll. You can use the Trinity online system for people to make bookings. So if you're interested in becoming a Trinity Register exam, I presume that you can click your phone on that, or you can just go into the website yourself and contact details. Okay, so the core principles of GESE, going back to the beginning. Okay, this is just to recap. So candidates choose between the three types. Remember, for work, for school, or for everyday English. So what best reflects their needs. They may ask you for this help. It's personalized. The topics, the students have chosen them themselves and can be um, shared amongst each other. As I said, they can have the same topic as long as they talk about slightly different aspects of it. So it gives them confidence. Communicative, they're prompted by the examiner to communicate together, exchange information, and ask questions. It also is what we call active speaking. So that means they're speaking and listening. If you're having to listen to the examiner's questions, you have to answer them relevantly, and that tests your listening skills and again reflects real life communication. And it's flexible in that they show what they can do with the language. There's no negative marking here. All right, so that's it. So thank you for joining us. And if you need questions or need support, and yes, questions. So I think we had some questions, did we, Alison, in the...
We did. Thank you so much, Liz. And I hope people found it helpful. We kind of covered everything, from who we are as Trinity, but also, how, if you're not an exam center, how you would work with us and everything in between for people who are already teaching at GESE. So thank you, Liz, for covering all of that. There are a few questions. I picked up a couple in the chat, and there are a couple in the Q&A, so I'll go through them kind of in turn. A couple are more kind of operational questions, and a few others just about the exam itself that maybe we could jointly answer together, Liz.
Yeah.
I'll just leave if you do have questions for our team or want to ask about how you access marketing materials, how you booking any of that, please get in touch with us. That's the UK language email there, uklanguage at trinitycollege.com. If you're not in the UK and Ireland, if you reach out to international at trinitycollege.com, one of my colleagues can help you. So I'm just going to stop sharing just for a minute, just so I can kind of just go back to some of the questions that we had. I'm going to start with the ones that are a little bit more operational, I think, Liz, and then do the ones that maybe have a little bit more of an academic focus. So one of the questions in the chat was about GESE Remote and whether that needed to be on specific dates. We are just starting to enroll centers to run GESE Remote, and we may move to a point where we open specific dates for you as a center. I think it really depends on whether or not you are planning to test people that are, in your area or that you have constant connection with. Maybe you're teaching them face to face, but they would take their test at home, versus a different scenario where maybe you do online tutoring and your candidates are in different parts of the world. I think regardless, we need to have a certain number of candidates in a session for the examiner's time. And I would probably keep in mind that that's somewhere between 5 and 10 learners. So we will probably be setting a minimum candidate number for a session. But I think it was Anne who asked that question. Anne, just drop us a line at UK Language and we can kind of talk you through what maybe the best options are for you. But we are flexible, but we do need to be mindful that the examiners are, working like a half day or a whole day. So we do need to have enough candidates in the session for it to be viable. So that was a very operational question. There was one other in the Q&A that I wanted to ask, actually two others. So when will the revised schemes of work be ready? So the current schemes of work are live, completely usable. Um, what we are looking at is, I would say, tweaking the schemes of work so that you can follow the GESE for school, GESE for work, or GESE for everyday strands, just updating the activities themselves. I'm hoping that they will be ready in the autumn term. They're being worked on now. But anyone who's downloaded the schemes of work before, you will automatically be notified when they're ready. But I would say probably the autumn is when we would have those. Another question is just around certificates. Do Trinity GESE certificates expire? No, they are for life. The certification is now done all digitally. So the candidate creates an account. It's through a system called Accredible, and that certification they can always access at any point. They can share that with an employer or anybody that needs to see their result. You can also request a paper certificate. There are fees for that. They're pretty reasonable fees. It just depends on where you are in the world, whether we're posting it quite far or not. But if somebody really wants a physical certificate, you can just order that once you receive your results. But they are valid for life. For if you're using the GESE exam for visa purposes, as we put in the beginning, that exam needs to be taken in a Trinity run secure English language test point. So you can't just take it in a school and use it for a visa application. So those are a little bit different. The certificate from Trinity's point of view is, you can use it for life, but if you use it as part of a visa application, it has to have been taken in the last 2 years. So sometimes there are some stipulations from other people as to, how long this certificate is valid for, if you like. But a Trinity certificate is valid for life. Um, Okay, there were a couple of other questions around. These are probably a little bit more academic, Liz, so I might see what your thoughts are. The first one was around the recommended grammar for the revised syllabus. Now, I'll just say there was really a move to, I guess, maybe celebrate the fact that as long as the candidate is communicating their ideas clearly and achieving the language functions of the grade, there are many ways to say the same thing. So that's why we've changed it. So the examiner isn't necessarily marking the student down for not having used a certain grammatical structure, but maybe they've achieved the same outcome in another way. So that's why we've sort of relaxed that. But the recommended grammar is still there because in many cases, that language function would naturally, you would naturally produce that grammar to make your point. But we're not marking somebody down if they've actually achieved it in a different way. Liz, I don't know if you have anything to add to that, but I think it's
Yes,
something that
yes, I
changed
think
for a
yes.
positive. Yeah.
Yes, I think you've got to have some parameters for each level and what's kind of expected. But it's, you see, we're looking for communicative, communicatability. I can't be
Mouthful.
communicative myself.
Mouthful, that
But
one.
the communication skill,
Yeah.
basically, that you are communicating what you mean in clearly so that the other person can understand. So instead, maybe of using for is going to, you might say is, and then use a future adverbial, which would show that you're using the future. So it doesn't have to be exactly grammatically perfect, because don't forget, native speakers of English don't speak with perfect grammar. it's more important for writing, but they must be communicative. We must be able to understand. Comprehensibility, that's the word I was looking for.
Good. Thank you for that. Okay. And then there was just one further question that I think that actually there's two. Vicky is asking, is this already in place? Yes, you can now well, as of the start of the year, a candidate can choose whether they want to do GESE for school, GESE for work, or GESE for every day. If it is a CELT exam, however, that remains as before. So the examiner will be looking for specific grammatical structures. So do keep that in mind if you're preparing, if you're a CELT preparation provider, there are you do need to make sure that that grammar is covered. But for anybody taking the GESE exam in a private center, a language school, anywhere in the world, we are now running the new revised syllabus. So, and then there was another quite meaty question in the Q&A, Liz, and I'll be interested in hearing what you say. Well, as an examiner too, but it's the whole concept of bias for best. And I think, it is the Trinity approach very much that what what we're aiming for is, we want to celebrate what the learner can do with language. Obviously, they need to demonstrate that they've got that language ability at that CFR level and that they're using the language of the grade. But the comment was, how do we harmonize bias for best and not punitive with a highly rigorous method that actually reflects the learner's agency of the language? Accuracy is still regarded as an important skill in spoken exams. And there's a bit of balance. It kind of goes back to that communicability. Is that the word that we use? Oh,
Comprehensibility.
comprehensibility. Yeah, well, they're both good. They're both suitable here. Uh,
Yes. Yes,
but
I think so. I mean, the thing is, what we're saying is, if they made a grammar error, there won't be a cross against it being a grammar error. Because if the most of it is we are able to understand and communicate, and most of it is accurate, that it's very unlikely that a student will have got to this point and make complete grammar errors, because what happens is, if they are for some reason lose their confidence or are very weak, they won't say anything.
mm,
So therefore we can't mark them anyway. So we must encourage them to speak, but if they make the odd little error, no, they're not going to be marked down for it. But we will be looking for some of those other areas that we can mark them up on.
yeah, okay. Good. Well, I hope that answered your question, Gaetano. All right. I think that brings us to the end. Thank you so much, Liz, for running the session. And just a reminder that tomorrow is the last of three in a row, and we'll be focusing on the interactive task tomorrow. So that will be, ideas for how do you get that practice. A little bit tricky because it's that sustaining a conversation and really asking questions and resolving things with the examiner is something that I think for some candidates can be a little bit different. So join us if you can, and thank you for your time today. And I hope you found it useful. Thanks very much. Bye bye.